You and I know that. It is all our responsibility. We reward those who demonstrate opulence, demonstrate material success. I remember something very, very clearly. Growing up in Nigeria, before Nigeria became what it is, with oil, etc., when a man was extremely educated like Nnamdi Azikiwe, when the Nigerian people want to refer to an enlightened man, they say he's brilliant like Nnamdi Azikiwe. In Ghana, when a man was brilliant, they say he's brilliant like Dr. Agri. These are people who have read at Oxford, Harvard, Cambridge. In Sierra Leone, they say he's as brilliant as David Siniko. This man who at the age of 17 got a first class distinction with 7 A's. And the late Dr. Sharu Eastman. All these countries put on the pedestal men who were extremely knowledgeable, had gone to school, had done something. Enlightened and wise men. In Liberia, a man is educated and said, "I'm crazy, you know too much book." It shows you. And so the society focuses on material wealth. Material wealth. And so people get into public office. People get into public office. They know what the society requires. Coming from school as a young man, a woman said to me, "I hear you going to Moja." I said, "Well, we're trying to conscientize our people." She said, "I hope you not come back to make yourself." What do they mean by make yourself? They mean to steal public funds. They mean to steal public funds. Public office is a noble office. You want to make money? Go into the private sector. Make as much money as you can make. Compete with the Lebanese. Compete with the Indians. Make money. Become a millionaire in the private sector. In the public sector, it's sacrifice. In the United States, the President of America makes chicken change compared to the President of General Motors. In Britain, a footballer like David Beckham makes about 50 times the salary of the Prime Minister of Britain. Public spiritedness must be there. You must serve simply because you want to create history. And let me say something to the young people. I know all this talk going around. Young is time for the younger generation. It's true. But guide against something. A young man who is not disciplined, who goes into public office, he has a lot of baggages. A young wife, a young family, girlfriend, etc. The temptation for corruption is greater. An older man who holds major public office, if he's disciplined and public spirited, he goes for historical glory and honor. Be careful. There is corruption. This is our society. You have to change the focus of people. I remember the late Samuel Doe saying, if Fahnbulleh does not want to be rich, he should not stop other people from being rich. What I was trying to say, Mr. Head of State, do not open the arena for people to loot this country. That's why people were killed. I was being very objective. It's always an honor to serve. You don't have any special qualities. You don't have any monopoly of knowledge. If you are choosing for a particular position to serve, the title honorable means a lot for your people. Yes, there are corrupt people. There will always be corrupt people. And that is why at times we must exercise decisiveness. I will propose that those who loot the public treasury will have to pay the price, and the right price. Because for each time you loot the public treasury, little children will not have drugs, the criminals will not have medicine. The wealth of the country belongs to all of us. The taxes of the people belong to all of us. Your business or businesses, that belongs to you and your family. Once you pay your taxes, if you're successful in business, you build a mansion with 50 stories. If you call me, I will come there. I got friends who are extremely wealthy in Nigeria. In London, they are business people. You don't go into government to be millionaires. It's not possible. The salaries are nothing. The salaries are nothing. So until you can change, And so this is not only the responsibility of government, it's the responsibility of our religious leaders, of our parents, and all of them. And all of them. My father used to say to us, you better go to school. He said, you better go to school. Because I don't think I will leave anything. I want to educate you. When I die, you must have your education. And that's all I can give you. That's all. And he was a wise man. Because I know a lot of children whose parents were wealthy and left them vast sums of money and property. They sold everything, drank into stupor. And then they go to find government jobs. And the circle repeats itself. So I think the Governance Commission will come out with some guidelines of how public servants should operate, how they should operate. And probably we need a system. Well, after every year, we have the Auditor General, somebody who will bring every minister, government official before the table of reasoning and say, can you now tell us what you have accumulated, what you have? Let's know your salary. There's no way you can make $1,200 without a bank credit, without inheritance from your parents, and within 2-3 years you build a house costing $200,000. But then you must teach us this magic. So yes, there is corruption, and I think as a society develops, when values begin to change, people will demand the day of reckoning for those who loot the public treasury. The day will come, and we should be quite aware of that. All the young people who are planning to go into government, who want to go into public office because you think it will make you big shots, understand one thing. If your calling is business, then do business. You're smarter than all these Lebanese traders. Probably the government must find a way and find some money to give you credit. Like the doctors go to their vocation of practicing medicine, the lawyers. So you must go like the farmers, let them be millionaires. Produce, go into business, do anything, and become rich. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong. But when you enter government, if you loot the treasure, then you are a simple rogue. You're not a public servant, and that is the reality. It's a societal problem. It's not a governmental problem. It's the problem of the society, the problem of the system. And that is the fact of the matter.
So I can digest from that you're supporting more the restorative justice factor of uplifting the people, educating them, empowering them, and allowing them to live healthy, normal lives as compared to just putting criminals in prison, etc., as a retributive approach.
That has been the nature of my struggle.
Thank you.
That's what I've been saying all along. That's what we believe in.
Thank you very much.
When human beings are treated decently, I said no man was born evil. When people are treated like human beings, they will behave like human beings. They will react like human beings. You cannot keep people in filth and the children in wretchedness and expect them to behave like human beings. It is difficult to build a society of free and equal citizens. There must be a distribution which makes people want to believe that they have a stake in the system. That's all it is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
We will have a time for historical review of what happened in our remote history, believing that there is an intrinsic link between the past and the contemporary history. But because of the very early encounter with the establishment, I'm inclined to ask this question. What do you make of the mindset or dilemma of a people who for the love of liberty came to establish a state, but yet still repeated those same conditions of slavery and perpetuated suppression for the number of years we've just discussed?
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. You know, I'm a great admirer of black men who take the risk of doing things which they felt was an honor to the race. The late Marcus Garvey of Sinter memory always looked at Liberia as a special case of a test of the black man's ingenuity to rule himself and to develop. So did the late George Padmore, not the George Padmore of Liberia, the author of Pan-Africanism of Communism. He was a good friend of Kwame Nkrumah. Liberia has a symbolic relevance for black people all over the world. It was the test of the resolve of people to come. They came. It was tragic that those who had the foresight, those who understood what needed to be done to create a cohesive society, they lost out in all the power struggle. I give you a good example. What has been said today. Go back and read E.W. Blythe. Go back and read Dr. Blyden's speech of 1864 when he called for a fusion of the settlers and indigenous people to create harmony within the society. That was 1864. Blyden was a very enlightened man. He had come from the Caribbean. Others came with him who were very knowledgeable of the destiny of these black people. But unfortunately, they were the losers in the power struggle. Blyden was dragged to the streets, Ashmore Street. This is the man who read Latin, Greek, Italian, corresponded with Gladstone of Britain, one of the most erudite black men of his times. They pushed this lie about Blyden, that he was having an affair with the wife of E.J. Roy, and they dragged Blyden through the streets, right Ashmore Street. Luckily for Dr. Blyden, some of his students were passing and they rescued Blyden. This noble African crossed the border into Sierra Leone, converted to Islam. His book, Islam, Christianity and the Negro Race, is a beautiful analysis of the black man's involvement in religion, as propagated by the Caucasian West and also by the Arabs. Blyden went to Sierra Leone, abandoned Liberia. He was made director of Islamic education by the British authorities. He never came. Blyden died in Sierra Leone. E.J. Roy was overthrown, was killed. I am saying that those who came, and I have an article out. You go back to Google or you get a copy of my book. It's not that I'm selling my book. Across the landscape, I deal with social forces and the struggle for democracy in Liberia. Our tragedy is that those who have the vision, the foresight to unite our people, they never succeeded in this society. Never. Those who were backward, reactionary, had contempt, they won simply because they were men who played dirty, and the politics of those days was the politics of intrigues. So noble men could not win. Whether it was Blyden, whether it was Alexander Cromwell, whether it was Dutweg, just name all these people, Dr. Marias, all of them from around this country. Ephraim Horace, very dynamic man who spent years in prison because he refused to bow down. They were great man. And then we come to contemporary times. One of the noblest of all of our people, the late Albert Port, a man who stuck by the Constitution. They mock him in the streets of Monrovia as he distributed his leaflets, calling on them to pay yield and to rescue themselves from the day of damnation. Albert Port, through the streets of Monrovia, a poor man from Crusoeville. There were men with vision. Unfortunately, in history, they don't win. And when they don't win, those who are given the mantle of power, they rule society in such a way that they create contradictions that then lead to tragedy. Those who came from America were courageous. Others followed them. understood the society. Amalgamate ourselves with those we met here. Blyden said, the sons of the soil must come as one with us. They are our brothers, we have come back. We must bring to them the enlightenment that we have taken from overseas. There was Blyden, 1864. We're talking about 2008. There's nothing strange. It has been said by people, by Faulkner and others, by Alexander Cromwell and others. What is strange? What is strange? Open your eyes. They are great people. I'm an admirer of Edwin Barclay, a great poet, a visionary. I love his songs. I remember he was called by an American ambassador an atheist and a man who was influenced by nationalistic thought in West Africa. So Tottenham was the man to support 1943 going 44 and after the elections. They have been great people, and this we always emphasize. As there have been great and enlightened settlers who understood what needed to be done like Blyden, so there have been backward and reactionary settlers. As there have been great and visionary indigenous Liberians, so have there been backward and very reactionary indigenous people. So your duty as young people is to fuse the consciousness of those who want to be Liberian. Those from the secular communities who believe that they as black people have a responsibility to show that this nation has much to offer the black man. You who come from indigenous masses who have achieved your education and want to build a society that will reflect the talent and potential of the black man. Identify yourself, fuse yourself together. You cannot win, you cannot develop this country by splitting this country into ethnic enclaves. For the first time in our history, we have the opportunity to say we are all Liberians. And we hope, for the sake of our children, that we are not only talking, that we believe that we are all Liberians. That every man must be judged on his skill, his talent, and his ability to perform. Every man and woman. That at the end of the day, we give honor to those whom honor is due. A man must become the leader because he can lead. A man must become Chief Justice because he has the ability. No position must be sacrosanct. We cannot, for the life of us, continue to wallow in the false hopes that people will sleep, that we don't understand. The country needs to be built. A lot has happened. And we do hope the TRC, in its effort, its difficult task of gathering intelligence and gathering data on what happened to our country, will be bold enough to say what has happened to this country. And that those who emerge as leaders will understand. It doesn't matter who you are. You can be a Cooper, a Dennis, a Jones, a Simpson, a Tupman, a Flomo, a Quali, a Yakwaru. When you cut yourself, the blood that comes out is red. We're all human beings. It is the demand of ourselves for the respect to be considered as human beings that lead us to agitate and fight. And we do hope that now we have understood our people are all human beings. They have the right to the wealth of this land. They have the right to see their children grow up and given the opportunity to be doctors, lawyers, engineers, to be president if needs be. That is the challenge. That is the task. I hope your generation understands. You don't make the blunder that your fathers and grandfathers made. We want to make sure that tomorrow the younger generation will not dance on the graves of those who are hard to learn and who will not listen. I thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you. Reflecting on the events of March and April then the outcome of all of those activities. I was just wondering, how would you describe the entire episode? Was it a miscalculated risk, or was it a calculated gamble to achieve a political objective?
Well, like I said before in my discourse, I think it was a tactical gamble by those who felt that they could mobilize numbers by exploiting a very simple issue like the price of rice. But I am convinced that all these people were looking forward to the elections of 1982. Democratic elections have to do with a question of numbers. And if the question of rice will mobilize the people on the side of a group, so be it. So be it. And I think we in Moja decided to identify with the brothers and sisters in PAL, because we too were making the calculation that we must not be seen standing aside. Because what happens if the PAL had gone forward with this and the tribal government had backed down to say, no, we won't increase the price of rice? The masters would say the only man who talks for us here is Babu Mahdi and the people. And I think that was a tactical gamble. I think the mistake in all of this was that a prophet was not heard in his own country, and that prophet was Albert Port. And that's why I will beg you members, commissioners, to go back and read that pamphlet by this noble Liberian, The Day Liberia Stood Still. Read him very carefully. That was your prophet. You know, in Judaism, the people of Israel believe that prophets are always sent. Prophets are always sent by God among mortals. You can accept prophets or reject prophets. The old man Albert Port was a prophet. Had he been listened to that day, it's possible the history of Liberia would have been different. But then your Bible says a prophet is not respected in his own country. And so nobody listened to the old man. The rest is history.
1980. The junta had serious apprehensions of a counter-coup, and there's so much up to now mystery surrounding this fellow. He was a soldier, his rank I may not know, Jabo. From your brief association with the government at the time, is there any clear explanation of who he was, what was his mission, or was he part of that apprehension of a counter-coup?
No, I learned later on because it's my duty to learn to find out. We learned after the coup that there was another coup in the making, we're told. A coup by conservative elements of the Tui party, right-wing elements. And that a Major Jabo was supposed to be the man who will lead this coup. That's what we heard. We later found out that Jabo had been meeting with certain people. He was well respected, highly trained. And that the conservative elements in the Tui party, we heard, did not want any bloodshed. They were waiting for Mr. Tolbert to leave for the inauguration, the independence celebration of Zimbabwe. And the rumor was that they would have carried out a coup. Mr. Tolbert would be in exile. They would enforce martial law and rule the country. That's what we heard. Unfortunately, Samuel Doe and his people preempted Jabo. And then there was this rumor that Jabo was a trained soldier. I got the feeling that all the TRC members were afraid of this man. They were apprehensive that if Jabo is around, anything can happen. Anything can happen. So nobody knew where Jabo was. He was in hiding. And we later heard that Jabo attempted to go across the Mana River Union into Sierra Leone. And the soldiers spotted him and shot him dead. And that's the last we heard of Jabo. The counter-coup I mentioned that prompted the TRC fellows to take the decision to execute the 13 people was a different counter-coup. It was said that Benny Warner was in the Ivory Coast, that obviously President Hifikepunye Boini had reasons to want to reverse the coup in Liberia, that he was going to send troops